Welcome to this video where we're going to feature a fun fold floral card, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the finished card, which is 4¼ by 5½. It features an uncentered front opening with plenty of space to write a message on the inside, as well as the sentiment which hangs off the edge and kind of forms a clasp on the front. It also stands up nicely for display. We'll start by taking the outline of the Primrose Garden die sets, and we're going to cut out 2 pieces of each edge. We don't need to be perfect for the entire length because, again, we're going to have a sort of off-center fold in the middle. Then we're going to cut out 2 card panels that are 4¼ by 5½. And we are doing this out of Rainforest cardstock from Concord & Ninth. And these 2 panels will form the back of our card. We're going to line up the outline die as well as the piercing die cut and cut that out of our first panel, which is about 3/4 of a full 4¼ by 5½ panel. And then we're going to repeat that for our other side, so the direct opposite side that we just did. We're going to do it again and go ahead and cut that out with the piercing die lined up inside the outline. And we'll go ahead and run that through our die cutting machine. And so now we have 2 sides. And then we're going to line them up with one of our card panels, just sort of determining exactly where we want that opening to occur. And we're going to mark with our pencil where we want the scores to happen. We'll use our scoring tool to score our cardstock, giving a nice little crease, and then folding that and giving it a nice fold. And then we're going to repeat that for the other side. Again, scoring where we marked with our pencil, folding that over, and then reinforcing that with our bone folder just to make sure it's a nice, solid crease. We have a little bit of extra cardstock here, so we're just going to cut that off the edge. Then we're going to apply some double-sided adhesive to the back of each of these little flaps. You could use whatever adhesive you want. I just used double-sided adhesive because it holds up pretty well. And then we're going to line up each side with our 4¼ panel, and we're going to make sure that our cut edge lines up with the bottom, so that way when it stands up it has a nice even edge and it'll stand up nicely. I'm just going to reinforce that stick at the back, and then we're going to repeat that for the other side, again trying to make sure that the bottom cut edge lines up with the bottom of the card panel. And this can be a little tricky, and I definitely messed up quite a bit here and had to redo this part. Just gotta readjust, reposition. Again, trying to make sure that lines up. I'm sure there are probably easier ways to do this. This might be a lesson in what not to do. And then we're just going to reinforce that tape. And you'll see that it opens up really nicely. And so we have formed our front part of our card. And then what we're going to do is apply our second panel to the back. So this will clean up those, that edging that you see, so you can't see it from the back side. So I used double-sided adhesive and some liquid adhesive just to secure this. And then you're just going to attach this second panel to the back so it has a nice clean back. Then we're going to be cutting out all the different pieces of the card panel. So the piecing can serve as a guide for how many pieces to cut out. So I cut out various pieces, and now I'm going to ink blend on top of them just to give it a little bit more texture and dimension. I use Wildberry ink here to apply some ink to the centers of these flowers, and this is Brickyard cardstock from Concord 9th, which is a new color. And then I'm going to apply some grape soda ink to the edges. So this is going to be pretty dramatic looking. And I'm just sort of dragging my blending brush across the edge there. This is a technique I learned from JC Gaspar at Concord 9th's most recent summer camp. I just think it's really cool. I usually end up with my fingers covered in ink. And that's just the way it goes sometimes. I get quite messy when I craft. But I think this is really dramatic with the purple edges. It almost looks like really dark along the edges of these sort of light red flowers. But I think it looks really cool looking. And then we'll move on to our next set of flowers, which were cut out of grapefruit and nectar cardstock. I'm just adding some, I think, watermelon ink to the edges and to the centers of these flowers just to give them a little bit something extra. And then some sweet pea, just adding some pinks. And this is grapefruit and nectar cardstock. Then I'm applying sea glass ink to the leaves, which are lemongrass and avocado. I really love the way the teal sort of looks on the lime green. It really brings out the blues in the rainforest cardstock, which we'll see later as on the background. And then again, applying sea glass to these berries and these leaves. Just again, giving them a little bit of extra something. And then applying rainforest ink directly onto the stems. Since the background is rainforest, they wanted to make it a little bit more distinguishable. I'm just making that a little bit darker. Then we'll go ahead and assemble our flowers, just using a little bit of liquid adhesive and putting those together. Again, I really just love that edge. It's so dramatic. Applying the centers. I get quite glue messy and inky when I craft, so it's just a great big mess of glue and ink everywhere, especially on my fingers, which then I drag across my cardstock. Applying the stem. Adding the centers to these flowers. I use my little wax tool. Sometimes I use my fingers, it just sort of depends. And then adding the berries. The berries stems have some indentations, so it's easy to distinguish between which berries go where, but you don't have to, I don't think it really matters where they go. Kind of just stick them on, hope for the best. And our last berry there. And then we're going to sort of arrange them on the front of the card panel. The piercing provides a pretty good guide of where. All right, now we're going to start gluing everything down. And I'm trying to follow the piercing guidelines for the different pieces, but I do make quite a few mistakes here, so I'm just running through this pretty quickly. just to get these pieces down. You definitely don't have to follow the guide. And I do make quite a few mistakes here as I'm applying these pieces. And you definitely don't have to follow the guide if you don't want to. It's really easy to cover up all the piercing marks. So you could definitely make it however you want to be, however you want it to look. And the first time I cut out all of these pieces, I realized I didn't cut out enough for the other side, so I actually had to go back and cut and ink a few more, just the pieces that I needed for this other side that was just a little bit needed just a few more pieces for this part. And just making sure that last part is lined up with the edge there. And just gonna get that final petal there. Then I'm gonna use my scissors to trim off the excess. As you can see, all that messy glue on the inside. And then I went ahead and heat embossed a sentiment from the stamp set that goes with this die, and I cut out multiple banners that I'm gluing together because it is going to hang off the edge, so I want to make sure it's a little bit stronger than just the average sentiment piece. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the little tails that will attach to the banner. Again, out of 3 die cut pieces glued together, and then applying a little bit of glue on each of the edges to then line up with the sentiment, sort of at an offset so it looks like a banner. And then we're going to apply the sentiment to just that one side, that left side. So we're just going to glue half of it, and then apply that, press it down, let it dry for a second, make sure it's secure, and then, oh. Thanks for watching. All in all, this card took about 1 hour and 45 minutes.